Yay, biscuit.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Saturday, January 25th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and you're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listener watch right after this game. This is a live postcast reaction show as North Carolina somehow survives Boston College 102-96. Special shout out to all the everydayers joining us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course our great Locked On Tar Heels insiders. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Well, it's not a therapy session. Perhaps feels like maybe it should be a therapy session. It's not. It's a dub, and that's it. For those of you who are regulars on our show, you might or might not be aware because we've been joking about it that it's my birthday. And so happy birthday to me, I guess. You know, the birthday gods helped Boston College not shoot a shot on that final possession of regulation. Carolina's record is now 13-8 overall, 6-3 in ACC play. They dropped, KenPom's already updated. They dropped to 37th at KenPom. And based on this defensive effort, where Carolina's defense had been ranking higher than their offense, that is now flipped, and the defense just took a big drop after this game. From a quad standpoint, this would have been devastating to the resume. This is a quad 4 game, one of only 2 quad 4s remaining left on the calendar, Miami being the other one because the Hurricanes are absolutely awful, just like Boston College is awful, but Carolina sure didn't make them look that way during this game. Speaking of, we did get some good quad news today, and I'll just pass this by, but Stanford, the loss last Saturday, just flipped from a quad 3 to a quad 2 loss. So look, you don't want losses, but you'd rather have a Q2 than a Q3. So that is helpful just when people look at the resume. All right, here's where we go on our live postcast reaction shows. We're going to look at this game. We'll look big picture, nitty gritty stuff, all sorts of that in between. If we got time at the end, we'll get to some comments over in the comments section as well. But here's where I want to start. Let's put this in bold relief, in perspective for us. The Tar Heels just mightily struggled. That's probably not strong enough. Carolina just escaped. Just survived by the skin of their teeth at home for the second Saturday in a row against a team that is, by the metrics, the worst team in all of the Power 5 conferences, although I guess they're second worst right now at KenPom, but in the net, they are the worst. No, it's flipped. At KenPom, they're whatever. They're one of the 2 worst teams in all the Power 5 conferences. That means out of the ACC, Big East, Big 10, Big 12, and SEC, it's Miami and it's Boston College ranked as the 2 worst teams. And the Tar Heels, coming off of back-to-back 1-point losses at home last week to Stanford, on the road Tuesday night at Wake Forest, I expect them to come out in this game and set the world on fire. And they kind of do. Yet again, taking a 9-point lead early at 24-15, I think was that lead. They did that in both of those games. Both of those games let the opponent come back, and it happened all over again. It's the same script. And if this game ended in regulation, it would have been a third straight, like, 1-possession game. Because it went to OT, it didn't end up being that way. It's a different result in that way, but the feeling, the vibes, it's all the exact same. It's just like last Saturday. You're at home, and you let a lesser team, talent-wise, I guess I don't know that we could call them lesser teams because Stanford did beat Carolina. BC probably should have beaten Carolina the way this game went. But you know what? This was a win. Last Saturday was not a win. Tuesday at Wake Forest was not a win. And yes, it's Boston College. Yes, the line was like 19.5 at FanDuel, but 20 at KenPom. And Carolina didn't come close to sniffing that. It is a win. and you just need to win. You just need wins. And at some level, in some weird way, could surviving this and finding a way to to get it spur you on? And we'll talk about this probably not today. We might do a quick look ahead at the end. Definitely on Monday and on Tuesday, we'll look ahead at it. But Carolina's 4-5-ish game stretch coming up is the most difficult part of the ACC schedule. And so you just had to survive, which Carolina did. In particular, that ending sequence. We'll talk about that in a second. But in this game, Carolina, in recent games, it's been the offense that's kind of struggled, and it's been the defense that's been in a better position. That completely flipped in this game, whereas Carolina had held each of their last 6 opponents to 73 or fewer points. BC passed that with 6:24 left in regulation. BC, who had not scored more than 83 points in a game this entire season, and like not just ACC play, the entire season, even against their non-con schedule. And they go out. I know it was overtime helped to get it even higher, but 96 points given up to Boston College. And they had dudes go absolutely off. When we look at this thing, Deion Brown, who thankfully fouled out late in regulation, 8 of 11 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3 for 20 points. You had Donald Hand Jr. with his dad and his gray beard sitting in the stands, 26 points, 8 of 17 shooting, 5 of 8 from 3. A good night. And then obviously Carolina had no answer inside for Chad Venning, who thankfully fouled out with about a minute to go in overtime. But Boston College just went absolutely nuclear from 3. They were sitting at or above 60% most of the game. That late 3 in overtime took them back under 60%, but they finished with 14 made threes. That's a season high for Boston College in 24 attempts. I mean, that is just befuddling how you let a team do that to you. I get that there's going to be some guys go off inside against Carolina because we don't have really the pushback with it. But to let a team go off from 3 like this, given Carolina's guard capability, is just unacceptable. Man, it stinks. It really, really does stink. And man, that is what it is right there. Here's something that I was appreciative of from Carolina, though. They were after a game against Wake Forest, where we talked ad infinitum the rest of the week about Carolina's lack of awareness with shot selection in terms of putting up so many threes versus the 2s they took, was much better in this game. Carolina, for the game, took 63 shots. Just 16 of those came from 3-point range. In a game that they went to overtime, just 16 threes. That is more than, I think it was 34, if I remember correctly, against Wake Forest. So in a game Carolina went to overtime, they took less than half of the attempts they did against Wake Forest. And you know what? They made 6 of them, and that percentage was 37.5. That is awesome. My goal is for Carolina to get to 35% from 3 game in and game out. And in this one, they hit 37.5%. Yes, yes, yes. We can live with that. Let's see. How many? 63 minus 16 is 47. So 47 twos Carolina took. That's what we're looking for. 47 divided by 63. That means 74.6% of Carolina's attempts were from 2. That, given Carolina's inability to shoot the 3 this year, that's about the distribution I'd like to see. 3 2s for every 1 3-point shot. And we can live with that. Points in the paint. How much did Carolina get? Points in the paint, points in the paint, points in the paint. Where are you at? Let's go to the split box because I know it shows it. Points in the paint, 58 for Carolina out of their 102. So just a little over half of their points there coming from points in the paint. That's what it's got to be. All right. Great. So that's an encouraging sign of self-awareness for the Tar Heels. That's what we were looking for there. All right. Let's talk about the ending sequence, starting with the end of regulation, because that was crazy. Seth Trimble, for the second week in a row, gives Carolina hope at the very end. Remember last week against Stanford, he made those 2 clutch free throws with, 7-ish seconds to go to put Carolina up by 1. And then, we know what happened after that. In this one, Carolina miraculously is able to force a 5-second call on Boston College, and they had a timeout to burn. I don't know why they didn't call it, but whatever, we'll take it. And ball goes into Jay Wash, gets it to Seth, who makes a tough little finish in the lane to give Carolina the tie. The problem is at that point, there were still 13.2 seconds left. Inexplicably, Boston College gets the ball in, runs it all the way down to 4.4 seconds left. And they were saying on the broadcast, if you were listening, they said, I think that might be Earl Grant's way of like, hey, we just want to run the game clock all the way down and not give Carolina a look. And I hear that. I get that. But what the commentators weren't taking into consideration is that Carolina had, 3 fouls to give at that point? Maybe it was just two fouls to give at that point. And if you got 4.4 seconds left, if I can run a second and a half, you're down to like a second or less. That's not time for a putback or even a great look. So I thought that was, thank you, BC. Thank you so much for that. And then they got it in once. Elliott fouled. And then Carolina didn't even have to use the second foul because Drake, for the second time in this end game sequence, gets his hands on the inbound pass. The first time, he wasn't able to corral it. He knocked it down, did a great job not reaching across and getting called for a tee, knocked it down and went out of bounds. On this one, though, he was able to grab it. And then Vanning was the last one to tip it out, went back to Carolina, who, by the way, got a great play. There was under 2 seconds left. It was like 1.8, something like that. Coach Davis drew up a great play to get a great look for RJ. It was just tough because he was going fast and in motion. It was an online three that was just a little bit long and rimmed off the back rim, which, by the way, I thought Coach Davis wasn't a good X's and O's coach. That's weird because that was a great play. Thank you very much. So Carolina, very much to their credit, did a great job surviving that ending sequence, getting what they needed to do. Remember, Boston College went up by 4 with 52 seconds left. They got that baseline runner. So Seth had Carolina's last 4 points of regulation. He goes down, gets fouled for the second week in a row, makes 2 critical free throws late. And then it was right after that when there was that whole thing where the 5-second call and going on. So really, really great job by Carolina just to get this one to overtime. Phenomenal job. Great job by Seth getting these buckets and doing the other stuff. All right. We got lots more to talk about here. We're going to get to all that, including an unfortunate injury early in overtime. We'll get to that and so much more coming up as we continue unpacking this game in just a second. Right after I tell you about Game Time. Attending NFL playoff games is an experience like no other. Energy, the excitement, the connection with other fans, man, it's unmatched. I live just about 2 hours south of Kansas City, and man, Chiefs fans are rabid around here. I know they're going to be so excited for these conference championship games tomorrow, Sunday. And man, the good news is if you want to go to one of these games, Game Time makes it even easier to create unforgettable moments with the new feature called Game Time Picks. What it does is when you're trying to get tickets, a lot of these third-party people that are trying to resell their tickets, they'll put up silly numbers that you would never buy. Game Time Picks filters all of that out to show you just the best option. So if you're trying to go to that game or any other, maybe you want to go see Carolina host Pitt coming up soon. That's 3 games from now. You can find some great tickets at Game Time. Maybe you want to go to one of these conference championship games tomorrow, Sunday. Last-minute tickets, snatch them right up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms do apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Okay, we're diving right back in. As we do so, I'm pulling the box score up in real time for those of you watching on YouTube. If you're listening back to this later in the audio platform, what's up? Welcome. So glad you're here. You can go find the box score elsewhere, but we'll obviously talk about it as we go. I want to get to talking about some of the individual players in this game and how they did. I want to start with Seth Trimble. We just talked about him scoring those last 4 points of regulation to get Carolina to this tie. But for the game, Seth Trimble has his second career double-double, a career-high rebounds, 12, 5 of which were offensive, I mean, by far led Carolina in rebounds. Next closest was Jay Wash with 6. RJ had 5. That's really encouraging to see. So Seth, the other time he did that was against Dayton. You might recall Seth had 27 and 10 in the Dayton game. Really good stuff. But man, it feels like this was a game where Seth gets back. We'll talk about him re-entering the starting lineup here in a second. But 18 points, 5 of 13 from the field, made 1 3. It was a really important 3. 7 of 8 at the free throw line. That was helpful to Carolina as well. Had 2 assists, just 1 turnover. And I really feel like there's so many moments where it's like Seth's really starting to get back going. There was a play early in this game. I mean, I think it gave Carolina like a 7-2 lead where Carolina just had one of their best outlet and go situations. I think it was Elliott got the rebound, quick pitch ahead to RJ on the opposite sideline from the benches, and then ahead to Seth with nobody around him for the dunk. I mean, it was a great fast break, and that's what we need to see from the Tar Heels. So really just good to get Seth back in and going. But I also want to point out the leading scorer for the Tar Heels in this game, RJ Davis, 22 points, 6 of 11 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3, including the first basket of the game for the Tar Heels. And that's important. He goes 2 of 5 from 3. That's going to bring his percentage up yet again. And a perfect 8 of 8 from the free throw line for RJ Davis. And when you think about all the pressure free throws he made, like at the end of overtime, for example, just stepping up in the moment, doing what he needed to do. But to go along with that, RJ, 5 rebounds. That's the third most on the team. On a day when Elliott struggled with assist to turnover ratio, 4 of each, RJ, 5 assists. So much of that, I need to go back and look at them. I wouldn't be surprised if they were all to Jalen Washington. They had a great connection in this game, but zero turnovers for RJ in this game. And that's, by the way, an overtime game in which Carolina only committed 8 total turnovers, 4 in the first half. And that means just 4 more in is that right? 4 in the first half, or was it 5? 4 in the first half, 3 in the second half. And that means 1 in overtime. So really nice ball management from the Tar Heels. Of course, as I just said, Elliott had 4. 3 of those were in the first half. So nice that he had just 1 after halftime and in overtime. Nobody else committed more than 1 turnover. The other 4 were spread amongst 4 other players. So really good stuff from the Tar Heels taking care of the ball. But really a dynamic duo performance from Seth Trimble and RJ Davis in this game. That said, though, let's also talk about Ian Jackson, who, for the first time in a long time since Seth Trimble went out with injury, what would that have been, the Campbell game? Ian had been in the starting lineup since then. Coach Davis, and this is where I want to go talk about Ian, and then we'll get to the starting lineup, but starts Ian, rewind. Ian started this game. He didn't start the second half. That's my mistake saying that. And in the first half, Ian had 4 points on 2 of 6 shooting. And like the defense hadn't been there, just quite frankly. Boston College first half, 1.286 points per possession. That's not going to cut it. And so Ian, for whether it was defense or other reasons, started the second half on the bench. This dude comes in and in the second half scores 15 total points, goes 6 of 7 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3. And I don't know that he had any point. Yeah, no points in overtime. So in a game in which he finished, Ian did, with 19 points, had 15 of those in the second half. And there was a special stretch where he scored 12 of those 15 from 13:05 on the clock to 7:43 on the clock. That's what that needed to be. And so really good to see Ian come back in that way. Jalen Washington, man. Really strong game all around. Finishes the game, Jalen does, with 18 points on 7 of 10 shooting, 4 of 4 from the free throw line. How important was that? 6 rebounds to be Carolina's second leading rebounder, 3 assists, just 1 turnover. And it was, man, like really good performance from Jay Wash. And I thought he just brought so much to what Carolina was doing. But then early in overtime, the problem, while Jay Wash was adding all that, he just doesn't have the bulk to contend with bigger centers inside. And if we're being honest, you saw it, I saw it. Boston College abused Carolina inside. And once again, it brings up the misses in the offseason. We'll just leave that alone and keep going. But unfortunately, just a couple possessions into overtime, if you go back and watch it, Jay Wash goes down, is holding his left knee. I don't want to be too specific on that. I'm not going to say that firmly because I'm just trying to remember looking at it. But as I can envision him holding his left knee as he's on the ground. And when you watch it, man, it's a non-contact knee injury where it just buckles. And you just think of the knee issues that he's had. He's been fully healthy. Things have been good. And we're not going to speculate on the specifics of what injury it is or the name of it, but it was a non-contact knee injury. He was able to, walk off decently, but went to the locker room, never came back in the game. And you hate it because one of the things this summer was whether or not you thought Jay Wash was ready to be the guy in the interior, which I thought Carolina needed to get more than just Van Allen Lubin, needed a higher impact big. You also need, and they got Ty Claude later in that game, but also you needed insurance. Because yes, I get it. Jay Wash had been healthy and things have been going good, but the injury history. The injury history with his knees. And if you're going to rely on him as your main five, I didn't think that was Van Allen Lubin to be a main five. I think Van Allen does some nice things. He's not a starting five in the ACC. Neither is Ty Claude. And so not only from a production standpoint, but just from an injury safety standpoint, you had to go get a dynamic, game-changing big, and it didn't happen. And we don't yet know the severity of Jay Wash's injury, and I'm sure Coach Davis won't speculate on that in his post-game presser either. But this is where we're at, man. And if Jay Wash is down, whether it's for a couple games or the rest of the season, I don't even want to start thinking about that yet. We'll talk about it Monday. Man, it's unfortunate. But talking about all these guys leads us to then talk about Carolina making changes to the starting lineup in this game. We've had the same starting lineup for a good while now, and Coach Davis went with a new one. So you still had Elliott and RJ, and you still had Ian Jackson. But instead of Drake Powell, now you had Seth Trimble, and instead of Jalen Washington, you had Van Allen Lubin. So a starting five of Elliott, RJ, Seth, Ian, and Van Allen Lubin. I thought it got off to a pretty nice start. Carolina, gave up a few offensive rebounds. By the way, in totality, Carolina won both the offensive and total rebounds in this game. Carolina won total rebounds 36-23, so plus 13. And then on offensive rebounds, Carolina had 12 to BC's 6, so plus 6. Carolina doubled up. That is a nice change from what's happened recently. We'll take that. And so I kind of don't know, if this change was a success or not. Clearly, it was not enough of a success that Coach Davis went with the same starters after halftime because he switched out both Van Allen Lubin and Ian Jackson. So the starting five after halftime was Elliott, RJ, Seth, Drake Powell, and Jalen Washington. So I think it's to be determined. And also, the decision kind of might be out of his hands as we get to Pittsburgh on Tuesday night. Carolina will be up at Pitt because I don't, based on what we just saw, unless there's some kind of miraculous recovery, I don't see Jay Wash playing in that game. So I think you got to go with Van Allen Lubin, and then we'll see who the other four are. Some combination of RJ, Elliott, Seth, Ian, and Drake. We'll see what happens. Maybe we get the death lineup that I've been talking about. I doubt it, but we'll see. Speaking of Van Allen Lubin, kudos to this dude who started the game. In the first half, Van Allen had 1 point. It was at the free throw line, 1 rebound, 1 turnover in 10 minutes played. That was it. Second half, Van Allen Lubin. Wow. Literally didn't play in the second half. I did not realize that. Neither did Jalen Withers. Neither did Cade Tyson. So there's all that. So Van Allen Lubin, he had to have played. He must have played under a minute because he had a personal foul in the second half. That was it. But then Van Allen, towards the end of overtime here, what was the score when he got this block? Had a little Jay Wash. Remember Jay Wash got the block to end the NC State game? Van Allen Lubin comes in. Carolina's up 100-96 off of the set. I mean, these teams for the first couple minutes of overtime just trading buckets. Neither team could get a stop. Nice answers back and forth by both teams. But then we get the Van Allen Lubin block on Donald Hand. I didn't realize it was him who had a game, man. He was doing everything, making everything. So that's a critical thing. That would have brought, I mean, Carolina had a 4-point lead at that point, but that basically seals it. And then on the other end, BC goes into kind of scramble mode, and some nice ball movement by Carolina gets Van Allen a dunk with 28 seconds left for the final lead. And then a nice look from Drake Powell for that. BC misses on the other end, and then Carolina just is able to run out the clock. So I just want to say kudos to Van Allen Lubin for what he did to stay invested in a game that he didn't play much in after he started, and getting those two key game-changing plays in the final minute of overtime. That's really helpful. Congrats, Van Allen Lubin. Also, I don't know how we've made it this far in. I know that Drake didn't have a ton in this game. What was his line here? Drake Powell, 5 points, 2 of 5, made a 3, had 3 boards, an assist. That last assist we just talked. Wow, so that was his only assist of the game, and a steal. But one of those 2 buckets that Drake Powell made was a ridiculous dunk that, at least at some level, I haven't gone back to watch it yet, but at some level has to rival the crazy dunk Ian had. Was it Wake Forest or Stanford? I feel like it was the Wake game. Maybe it was the Stanford game. I can't remember. Anyway, wow. Crazy stuff from Drake Powell. Really appreciate that. Good job, young man. All right. Obviously, lots more to talk about. We'll do that on Monday. What I do want to get to, though, is lots of comments over there, and I want to see what you guys have to say and chime in on this game. That's where we're going to go in just a second. All right, let's start with one from our guy, JC Fox. Jonathan says, BC was 1-7 in ACC games before this. They had an average loss of 17. Squeaking this one by does not feel much of a win, but I'll take it. Yeah, JC, man, I'm with you, dude. It's like, I don't know if it was just BC on fire or Carolina's defensive miscues, which one led to this more. But BC came out, and it felt like, Carolina feels like they should be playing with nothing to lose, and they didn't, It felt like they were the team that was more tightened up, and BC, who would have been getting spanked. Literally, their one ACC win was over Miami, and we just talked about how bad they are. And so Carolina at home, it's tough, man. So, but like JC said, we will absolutely take it. We will take it. Mark Schrader, this is funny, says, this Tar Heel team could beat anyone. And then his very next comment, or lose to anyone. I mean, Carolina, outside of Alabama, I didn't think they were in that game at all. And while Carolina had some chances against Auburn, that felt like Auburn was clearly the better team. They've been right there in almost every other game. Let me see. One of my documents I keep that our Locked On insiders can see all the time is the losses document. Carolina's average defeat is by 6.9 points. They have lost by double digits 3 times. Auburn by 13, Bama by 15, and Louisville by 13. But that Louisville game, it really wasn't a 13-point loss. That's just what happened at the end, as Carolina was trying to foul to make stuff happen, and it just wasn't working. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. Nuts stuff there. All right, let's keep looking here through the comments to see what happened. Debbie Barker says, yes, Tar Heels were lucky. BC players fouled out. And I mean, yeah, maybe some luck to that. But one thing I need to say is that Carolina did a much better job of defending without fouling in the second half. Almost bit them because they had so few fouls. But actually, it turned out to be good. They had a couple fouls to give right at the very end of regulation. And again, hat tip and a thank you to Boston College for how they handled that. In the first half, Carolina committed, where's personal fouls? 7 fouls. And in the second half, it was, I was looking at Boston College's total fouls. In the second half, Carolina committed just 5 fouls, and one of those at least was just right at the end, intentionally so. And so Carolina did a really good job of defending without fouling there, but they couldn't do a good job defending in totality as BC was reining it in from three and doing work from the outside. But what was important in this game is it felt like a Roy Williams type of situation where Carolina was able to get some of the key opposition in foul trouble, right? Like that is a staple of a Roy Williams team, including Deion Brown, who had been going off from three, well above his season average, and including both Chad Venning and who is the other big guy, Hastings, who were saddled with foul trouble for most of the second half. What I didn't think Carolina did enough of was once those bigs got foul trouble, really attacking them and trying to make stuff happen. And I would have liked to have seen more of that. But eventually Venning fouled out. There was still a minute left. And then I thought that was key in the closing sequences of this game. So very fortunate, yes, that Carolina was able to get some foul trouble on these guys. Trying to look to see if anybody has said anything about Melinda Dolphin. Here's an update from Melinda. Thank you, Melinda, for this. Jalen Washington says he's okay. Knee just gave out a little. Boy, if that is the case, thank you, Melinda, for updating that. I was terrified. Gosh, please be the case. Melinda, thank you for that update. Derek Tyson, what's up, Derek? Says, if you look at the box score, Claude's numbers don't jump out at you, but I love the hustle and energy he brought, which this team sometimes lacks. Derek, this is a great catch, man. Ty Claude, when you look at the box score, let me see what he actually had for the game. He played 6 minutes, had 2 points, made 1 basket, and it was on an offensive rebound and putback, right? If I remember correctly, 2 rebounds and was +2. By the way, highest plus minus in this game for the Tar Heels, Drake Powell, +11. Way to go, Drake. Ty Claude, though, I agree with you because Carolina had the Van Allen Lubin was dealing with foul trouble. He got up to 4 pretty early on in the second half. Jay Wash was really needing a breather. I think at that point is why Coach Davis brought in Ty Claude because Ty, didn't play in the first half. All 6 of those minutes were in the second half because I don't think he played in OT, right? I'm trying to remember in real time. So I think all 6 of these minutes were in the second half. And he was hustling. He was defending, getting deflections, getting on the floor. And so, Derek, this is a great point. Just that energy. And that's why Carolina went and got him, right? Is to bring that level of doing stuff and his offensive rebounding capability, which got Carolina a bucket in the second half as they were just trying to find their way to win this game when BC was just hitting everything in sight. So, man, Derek, great call pointing that out. And we'll see what's on that. Okay, good. I'm sure there's more we need to get to here. Actually got to a question down lower. This is from a Puerto Rican vegan musician socialist. This is my favorite YouTube name that's always with us. Glad to see you. Says, do you suspect we'll see more James Brown? Seems like we've lost out on Cade Tyson. Also props to Claude for his effort. Yes, we just talked about Ty Claude. With James Brown, did not play in this game, didn't step on the court. If I'm being honest, I think that's probably because like you saw how Jay Wash was getting tossed around both physically and look, Vanning's got great foot skill. Like his footwork, really impressive. I just don't think James Brown either has the experience or the girth for a game of this nature. That said, neither did Jay Wash, and he was in. And I think JB, when he's in, brings that same energy as Ty Claude. So, I guess at some level, could it get any worse than it already was? They're already scoring at will inside. At least JB is going to give some minutes and give some energy. I think it's worth at least a shot, maybe late in the first half, where he'd been getting minutes here and there, and I just didn't get it. As for Cade Tyson, we mentioned him. Just again, he had 1 look at 3. I thought it was a great look. The shot just didn't look good. It's befuddling to me. Poor guy was so good at Belmont and just doesn't have it. It's got to be a big mental hurdle at this game and all of this stuff. And so we'll see. But Carolina does get this win, and we will absolutely take it. So looking forward again, just very briefly, and then we'll get out of here. Carolina on the road at Pitt on Tuesday. And then literally a week from today, next Saturday, it's round 1. Carolina goes to Duke a week from today. I got to get some stuff figured out. And if J-Wash, like hopefully what we just heard from Melinda is true and J-Wash is good to go. But and then after Duke, Carolina hosts Pitt, and then they have to go to Clemson the Saturday after that. Is that the right? No, that's before that. Anyway, we'll figure out when that is. Okay, it is all coming up soon, but that's the schedule. At Pitt, at Duke, versus Pitt, at Clemson, at Syracuse. And so, you get a week off. Okay, after the Duke game, there's a week off midweek, then host Pitt on the 8th. So that must mean the game at Clemson is like Tuesday or Wednesday, the 11th or 12th, right in there somewhere. Or maybe it's that Monday. Is it a quick turnaround? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Y'all, this schedule, I'm just telling you, it's going to be very, very rough. And so we're going to have to see what happens with all of that. We'll keep our eyes on it, and maybe Carolina can get some stuff figured out. But got to go to Pitt. Thankfully, Pitt has been struggling as well as the Tar Heels. So you don't know. You might be able to pull it off. Go in there, get some energy. As we said from Mark earlier, Carolina can hang with anybody and they can lose to anybody. And so we'll see what happens. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today, being on Locked On Tar Heels Postcast Live Reaction Show. We'll be back Monday with our next, we'll unpack this game. We'll have the weekend whip around, any big picture stuff. If we get more news on J-Wash, all of that will come up at you. I know we'll have some more takes from this game as well. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I know I am. My wife is taking me out to a birthday dinner at our ultimate favorite restaurant. I'm going to go get the best steak in the town that I live in, and I cannot wait. So hopefully you have a great Saturday as well. If you haven't subscribed to our show, make sure you do so you don't miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels. We're getting so close now to our 10-3 goal, 10,000 subscribers on YouTube in the first 3 years of the show. It's under 200 to go, under 300 to go, and you can be the very next one. Join us on the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, where we're talking Carolina stuff all day, every day. Links in the show notes, free to join. Join the Locked On Tar Heels Insider Program to go deep with the show. You get free access to all of my stats and charts and data and other perks as well. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. It's a close shave, but a win is a win is a win. We'll take it and we'll move on with our Saturday. Thank you very much. We'll talk again Monday, but until then, peace.